Arken Age will be released on January 16th for PlayStation VR 2 and on Steam for PC VR headsets, and after spending a few hours exploring its first 4 areas, I'm left with a thoroughly positive impression. It's rare to find a VR game that manages to look visually spectacular while also embracing the inherent physicality of virtual reality, but Arken Age does exactly that. I've only delved into a small portion of what the game has to offer. There are reportedly 25 distinct areas in total and a campaign that exceeds 15 hours, so I can't speak for its full scope just yet, but if the initial zones are any indication, this is going to be a must-play for anyone who loves action-oriented VR adventures. In terms of overall structure, you'll begin the game with a long tutorial that covers almost all the fundamental systems. You learn how to wield 3 distinct weapon categories: a melee sword, a medium-range laser pistol, and a heavy shotgun-like gun. The tutorial does feel a bit overwhelming simply because it gives you so much all at once, but it does mean that as soon as you finish this opening sequence, you're fully prepared to handle the breadth of encounters the game throws at you. The premise of Arken Age positions you as a warrior of the lizard-like Nara who are at war with a technologically advanced robotic force occupying their homeworld and extracting a critical energy resource called Arkenite. This sci-fi setting, with its blend of otherworldly vistas and reptilian culture, makes for a refreshing twist. Rather than the usual medieval fantasy or purely futuristic aesthetic, Arken Age melds alien temples, wildlife, and a sort of mechanical intrusion that feels both menacing and visually striking. The main hook lies in the physics-based combat, which is delightfully challenging and strategic. In the first few areas, I encountered different types of robots that took unique approaches to fighting. Some barreled right at me in melee range, forcing me to parry and slice with the sword or raise my shield at just the right moment, while others lobbed grenades or pinned me with root bombs from a safe distance. This forced me to develop a hit-and-run strategy, isolating individual enemies rather than charging into a group. The weapon loadout can be customized further by finding or purchasing attachments, or modify the barrel of your pistol to increase its accuracy and stopping power. This depth suggests that over the course of the campaign, you'll be able to shape your loadout to fit your preferred style, whether that's a mix of stealthy climbing and precise pistol shots, or all-out close-quarter swordplay and shotgun blasts. Complementing the combat is a robust movement system that combines smooth locomotion with the ability to jump, swim, climb, and crouch. The environment is divided into handcrafted levels rather than randomized maps, so each zone has its own layout, secrets, and optional side quests. These can range from simple tasks like collecting hidden Nara relics to more involved objectives that might require advanced mobility. Being able to climb massive trees or dive underwater adds a layer of vertical exploration many VR games lack. Visually, Arken Age makes a strong case for those who want VR games to push the envelope graphically. On PlayStation VR 2, the developers have included 2 main rendering modes: a performance mode, which runs at 90 native frames per second at around 2800 by 2000 resolution, and a quality mode, which goes for a higher resolution but reprojects up to 120 FPS. While the latter might look a bit sharper if you hold still and admire the environment, the reprojection introduces mild ghosting, so I personally gravitated toward performance mode for the smoother action. Regardless of which option you choose, the game takes advantage of PSVR 2's extra features: HDR lighting, adaptive triggers that feel different depending on which weapon you fire, and haptic feedback in the headset itself. Plunging off a ledge or sustaining a big hit triggers a subtle rumble, adding another layer of immersion. If you're fortunate enough to have the PlayStation 5 Pro hardware, you also get a resolution boost of around 15% in performance mode and 25% in quality mode. For those on PC VR, it's likely you'll be able to tweak graphical settings to push the fidelity even higher, assuming you have a rig powerful enough. The environments I've seen so far look both lush and metallic, peppered with vegetation that glows in the half-light of alien suns and mechanical structures that buzz with ominous machinery. When you combine that aesthetic with the lizard-like Nara civilization, their ornamental temples, carved stone passages, and sculptural architecture, it feels distinctive, like you're on a planet where ancient culture and futuristic technology are colliding in real time. The big question on my mind, as with any VR game advertising a 15+ hour campaign, is whether Arken Age can sustain this level of excitement the entire time. It's all too common for promising VR titles to run out of steam and start reusing the same enemy types and mission structures. But the fact that each of the initial areas I explored was handcrafted rather than procedurally generated gives me hope that the developers have designed these zones to remain engaging throughout. The progression system also appears layered, with more advanced crafting and weapon upgrades to unlock, so there's a good chance you won't see everything within the first couple of hours. The combat, however, is definitely the main attraction. Every fight feels dynamic. It's not simply about how fast you can swing a sword, but how well you can block, dodge, reload, and switch between firearms on the fly. Grabbing a new ammo cell from over your shoulder in the middle of a firefight while you're ducking under enemy lasers is exhilarating. Being pinned by a root bomb, smashing it with a quick sword strike, then returning fire with the heavy gun at close range feels intense. Watching a robot's armor fly off in pieces as you whittle it down gives these battles a certain tangibility many VR action games aspire to but don't fully achieve. Performance on PSVR 2 was commendably smooth in performance mode, so I barely noticed any frame rate dips even in crowded scenes with multiple enemies or when blowing up crates and deploying grenades. That sense of technical polish, combined with the carefully designed environments, hints that Arken Age might be one of those rare VR releases that truly understands how to create a cohesive virtual world. You're not stuck in endless corridors or tiny arenas. You're traversing open areas, climbing or swimming when it suits you, and occasionally retreating to a merchant kiosk to sell scrap and buy items with your collected currency. The sense of progression and freedom is surprisingly robust for a VR title. My main reservation is that I don't know if will it stay this good throughout its 25 total areas and 15+ hours, or will later sections fall back on repetitive design. It's a legitimate concern when dealing with a campaign of that length in virtual reality, where fatigue can set in more quickly than in traditional flat-screen games. Yet if these first hours are any indication, the developers have put considerable effort into variety, from multi-layered level geometry to different enemy classes that use distinct tactics. There's also no shortage of side quests and hidden objectives that can net you new attachments or extra resources, which should reward exploration if you're the type of player who likes to inspect every nook and cranny. Based on what I've seen, Arken Age makes a strong case for itself as a mid-priced VR offering at $40. If you enjoy VR experiences that emphasize physically engaging combat, plenty of locomotion options, and the promise of a longer campaign than most VR shooters or hack-and-slash titles, I'd strongly suggest keeping this one on your wish list. The sense of immersion you get from being able to block bullets with your shield, knock helmets off enemies with a well-timed swing, and then leap onto a nearby ledge for a better firing angle is exactly the kind of dynamic gameplay that VR is capable of delivering when done right. The release date is locked in for January 16th, so it won't be long before the full version is in our hands. If the final product can maintain the level of polish, visual fidelity, and gameplay depth I encountered in these early areas, Arken Age could easily become one of the standout VR titles of its release window. It offers a creative mix of science fiction, alien aesthetics, all wrapped up in a well-optimized package that feels comfortable and fluid to play. That's everything I wanted to share with you about Arken Age in this preview. Thanks to Vitruvius VR, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.